You have to understand that everything you're going through is an inside job. All of it. What most people don't understand is that whatever's happening to you at this moment in time, and time is just a concept here, right? Whatever you're going through, you attract it in, and it's there for a reason. Doesn't matter if it's, some human that is annoying you, some human that is treating you wrong. Doesn't matter if it's, some government that seems to take away your freedom, all that, stuff that happens to us and that we go through. It all, in the end, depends on how you react to it. It's an inside job. How do you react to the circumstance? What do you do with your nervous system? Why do you think, if you look at Netflix, Prime, Paramount Plus, whatever they're called, why do you think that probably 2/3 of the media on it is violence, is some sort of negatively connotated kind of media, right? So anything to do with drugs, anything to do with gangs, anything to do with shootings, anything to do with people having money that are bad in a sense, right? It's all connected, you have to understand that. And so that's what they use to program us. This is not by accident. This is all part of the game, and most people don't even see that they're playing it, You think that it's normal that you watch a horror movie just before going to bed, and then you don't care about what happens in your dreams and your subconscious and in your unconscious, what gets stored there, what happens to your nervous system in that process. In those hours where you're supposed to be healing, where you're supposed to be recovering, where you're supposed to be detoxing, where your lymphatic system are supposed to open up, carry the toxins out to the certain organs that take care of them, and then you excrete them afterwards. All that shit doesn't work if your Wi-Fi is on at home, if you're under stress after indulging in such media, for example, when your nervous system cannot calm down. Yeah, I know you haven't thought about this yet, I know. But believe me, this is crucial. Doesn't matter if you're, on your wellness journey or your sober journey, if you're, an executive or still going to school. It does not matter, right? If you do not take care of your body, if you do not open up the detoxing pathways, and if you don't take care of the processes that need to happen at night especially, and during your sleep, you will get sick and you will run into disease eventually. Maybe it's not going to happen tomorrow, maybe it's not going to happen next year, but it will happen. Because it's impossible for it not to happen. Because the system simply will be overrun by toxins and by stress, and then it won't function properly anymore, right? And then it might show up with skin problems, it might show up with aches and pains, and then what do? You go to your Western medical doctor and they prescribe you a drug that you get from the pharmacy to treat the symptom. They never go for the root. It treats the symptom, and in 90% of the cases, it has huge side effects. And there you are in that perpetual cycle that will just fuck you up even more. And oftentimes when people get to me and they ask for my help, or they want my help, and they want me to consult them, this is where they are at, you know. This is where they realize something's not adding up here. My doctor's work does not really help me. You know, whatever my clinician or, you know, the pharmacy gave me is not working. And actually I feel worse than before. And then you think about holistic approaches, right? But that's why I'm doing these videos. I'm trying to maybe open some of your eyes, you know, because there's some of you that are watching that haven't, you know, started working with me yet. And I'm just trying to maybe prevent you from going down that route. Maybe, you know, you're able to actually prevent yourself from going down these fucking these really shitty occurrences and these really shitty routes, you know, that don't lead to anywhere, and they will just pull you out of your life. You will end up in places where oftentimes you cannot live your life anymore because you're in so much pain. Oftentimes you cannot operate properly, so you cannot go to work, you cannot, you know, do your stuff anymore, you cannot be there for your family. That's all because you waited until it's too, you know, until it's too late in a sense, right? Like you cannot, you know, go through that phase like, you know, in a more smooth way, right? Many occasions and in many cases, you know, the heavy medication needs to come in then, right? Like antibiotics, all that kind of stuff, because you have, all of a sudden you get infections, you know, you get all these major kind of problems, right? And this can all be prevented if you just do some holistic approach work, some holistic wellness work, some intelligent work that goes for the root, work that helps you detox holistically, work that actually gets you healthy, you know? So this is just an invitation to think about this, right? Just because you grew up with a process that has been put into your life where you get sick, you go to the doctor, you get a prescription, you ingest it, and you wait for something to happen, right? Like this process has been, you know, pressed into our being, and we think it's normal, right? Like we don't do any maintenance work. Like I think maybe up to 5% of people do maintenance work, right? And if even, you know, and a lot of those think that like working out is maintenance, you know. It's still a stressor, you know, still a stressor on the body to work out every day, let's say, right? You need to work in as well, you know. You need to do you know, exercise that does not make your mouth dry up, for example, right? Where that's a good indication, right? If you can do an exercise and if you can do a work in where you don't need to drink because your mouth does not get dry, then that's a work in, right? That's not a workout. You're working in. You're actually gaining energy through that exercise and through that practice. And if you know how to balance working out and working in, you rarely run into problems. Your body will fix itself. You detox regularly. You know, due diligence with stuff that you kind of eat, ingest, drink, exposed to, and you choose better options, right? This is the first step. You know, you need to know what to not to take and you need to know what to not eat, and you need to know what to not do, right? I.e., eating a fucking fat steak at 9 p.m. and drinking half a bottle of wine with it. It's just stuff you don't do. You can do it maybe like, if there's like a fucking occasion, for it, and you really think it's necessary, right? But like, be aware of what happens. Like, just know that that night of sleep afterwards is useless to your system. Absolutely useless. You will feel shit the next day. You won't have recovered, and your body was busy digesting all night and getting rid of, the alcohol. I stopped drinking a couple years ago, and I've never felt better. And it was fucking hard to get there, to not be able to drink on a daily basis, because it was my self-medication, right? I was treating my ADD, my ADHD with alcohol and other substances as well, right? But alcohol was my companion for almost 20 years. So I had to relearn everything from the ground up, I had to learn everything about detoxification, or about rebuilding the body back up, about building a foundation, about supplementation, about micro and macronutrients. I mean, I knew a lot of it, that I've always been around that stuff. I've always eaten well, I've always exercised, I've always done my sauna, I've always, been in nature. Like, I didn't have to, learn everything from scratch, but what I'm saying is like the protocols and how to approach these kind of things in a smart way. I learned that from my mentors, from the people that I work with for myself, and the professionals that I learned from and that teach me and still teach me and taught me. Have been doing this for many decades, and they've been testing everything, and a lot of the stuff I do is not my invention, right? Like, I didn't invent the idea how to detox glyphosate from the body in a smart way. There's chemists for that understand that glyphosate and glycine have a very similar chemical structure, and then you add one and one together, and then someone finds out, okay, if you actually ingest glycine in a high amount over a certain period of time, and you add some lemon to it, and you do certain detox baths with it, and then you have certain teas with it, so the glyphosate can actually get flushed out properly, then those are it's not rocket science, right? But this is stuff you have to know if you want to get healthy, if you want to fix your leaky gut, if you want to help your brain heal itself after destroying your dopamine level and your baseline, right? Your gut needs to be fixed, and everyone that watches this has to fix their gut, because we're exposed to all this shit on a daily basis, and our gut is just screaming for help. Maybe you're taking pills so you don't have diarrhea on a daily basis. Maybe you have stomach cramps. Maybe you cannot drink coffee because your body or your stomach will be all over the place. Maybe you cannot even eat certain foods because your intestines are inflamed, right? And all of that, sometimes you think then it's an allergy. You have a certain food allergy all of a sudden, but you haven't even fixed the basics yet. How do you know that you have an allergy? Like right now I'm doing a parasite cleanse for, I'm already on the 3rd cycle, so it's phase 1 is 5 days, phase 2 is 10 days, and then you cycle. And it's just natural compounds, it's herbs, it's things like wormwood, things like pumpkin seeds, things like juniper berries, things like papaya seeds, right? And then you take them in a certain amount 3 times a day, and you take certain detox teas with it, and you know, like there's a couple things that you have to kind of add together for it to be like successful. Because a lot of you know, these detox gurus out there, they will just tell you to take pumpkin seeds. You take a handful of pumpkin seeds 3 times a day and it will solve your problem, or you just take wormwood, and it's all good, you know, that's better than nothing. But like oftentimes they forget that it actually, you do a lot of damage with it as well if you don't know how to, you know, help the gut heal itself afterwards, right? Like you're attacking it, let's say, and the parasites are kind of excreting all the garbage and the toxins, and then they don't show you the way how to grab that and actually excrete it, so it gets back into the body and it stays in the system. And then you have, you know, you get skin problems, you have to get stomach problems and all that shit, you know. So do these kind of things with someone that you trust. Do these things with someone where you know they've done it themselves, they've gone through it themselves, they know what they're talking about. You know, there's a lot of these people out there, they talk about all these topics, and then all they do is give you an affiliate link to some fucking herbal tincture company, right, that's produced in China or in fucking Asia somewhere, and then you wonder why you know, you feel worse afterwards. Yeah, just be aware that there's a lot of crap out there, there's a lot of bullshit out there. You know, I learned from the best, and you know, surely there were a few, and I mean, I healed myself with the best mentors and with the best doctors, and I did, you know, work with 1 or 2 on my mental types of topics, right, where I wasn't really happy with the approaches and stuff. But apart from that, you know, I was pretty spot on. I didn't really have any bad experiences with any of the humans that helped me on my journey, you know, which has been going on for many years. It's because, you know, I'm lucky in a sense that I have this understanding of these topics since I'm a child, and you know, grew up with people that have a better, or had a better understanding of these topics than when, you know, I started this journey. So I could always ask for guidance, and I did ask for guidance, and always had the right contacts in that field, and still have, right? So yeah, just get to work, you know. Don't have to do it with me, but get to work with, you know, someone that you think has the answers to your problems, that has walked the walk, that has actually been where you are right now. You know, it's better than working with someone that has just learned these things from the book, you know. Which is just mind-boggling to me, you know, how many people don't have any practical experience and they're like building courses and stuff. But yeah, that's how it works. It's all good, you know. Everything has its place. So get to work. Download my free guide if you want to do some basic little tweaks and changes that will already, you know, have a huge effect on your overall health. I will, you know, send out an email once my masterclass is ready, where I'll be talking about these topics in more depth, and I will give you some things to work with. It will be free, right? So yeah, sign up. Just, you know, comment guide or DM me the word guide on IG, and then you will get the link for it, and you will be able to also join my community if you want to. And yeah, this is it, you know. If you have any questions, you can always DM me, right? Start the DM with question, right? So it's easier to be filtered out, because I get so many messages every day, and you know, there's like hundreds of people writing me all kinds of weird stuff, you know. So if you really have a question, make sure I can, see it quickly, so I don't delete it by accident, right? Or, whoever else looks through the messages. Okay, I hope this all made sense, right? If it didn't, then let me know. If it did, let me know. And I hope it brought you value, right? Which is why I do this. And maybe, you can get going already with whatever you need to get going with, right? But as I said, these basic detoxing topics, they're for everyone, literally for everyone. It's not a thing like, hey, maybe I do have to do it or maybe not. You're exposed to all of the shit. Doesn't matter if you eat organic or not, right? Just be aware of that. All right.